began and will continue tomorrow the mass vaccination in the department up to the third stage within the National Vaccination Plan. The Health Secretariat announced which will be the vaccination points where people who are currently qualified within the prioritized groups will be able to apply the vaccine.
From 8:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, the application of the vaccine begins today at different points of our island. Among them are the Departmental Hospital, the Man of War Park, the Basketball Coliseum in San Luis, the Cultural House on the Hill, and Infotech. On this vaccination session, the official of the Health Secretariat, Gina Manuel, said,
En el punto del hospital,
the vaccination point located at the local hospital, they are applying second doses of Sinovac to complete the scheme, and the request has been made so that in San Luis they can also start the application of the second doses. At the other points, the vaccination scheme is being started with AstraZeneca.
The official reminds the community to be attentive to the date or the stipulated time in which they should take the second dose depending on the vaccine that has been applied. On the other hand, it was announced today that Colombia will be the first country in Latin America to receive the Janssen single-dose vaccines.
Ya tenemos la confirmación de que el próximo martes.
We already have the confirmation that next Tuesday, June 15th, we will receive the first shipment of 480,000 doses of the Janssen vaccine, which will arrive in the country to be added to the National Vaccination Plan. This vaccine is very important because it will allow mass vaccination with the unification of stages in remote municipalities of the country or areas of conflict.
Today, it is not known how the mass vaccination will be carried out in our archipelago department. However, it was announced by the Health Secretariat that today a round table was held where precisely this topic was discussed.
The occupation of the ICU for COVID-19 continues above 50% in the department. The cases of coronavirus infections presented today a decrease in the figures.
The National Institute of Health in its daily report registered 20 cases of COVID-19 for the archipelago, being one of the lowest numbers of infections that have been presented in recent days. In addition to this, the Institute reports no deaths due to the virus in the island today. Data from the departmental government present in the last report dated June 9th, a total of 118 active cases of COVID-19 in the whole archipelago, 114 in San Andres and 4 in Old Providence. Teleislas News was able to know that the neighborhoods with more cases of coronavirus are Guinea Hen, San Luis, Ceribé, Barrio Obrero, and Schoolhouse. The local government indicates that so far in the pandemic, 5,661 people have been recovered, as well as a total of 113 deaths are reported in the health emergency. The occupancy of the intensive care unit COVID-19 registers up to the date occupation of 81%, a situation that has generated the availability of other areas of the hospital for the attention of the coronavirus. Data from the Ministry of Health as of June 10th indicates that a total of 19,982 doses have been applied in the archipelago. The local government informed that in San Andres a total of 13,890 doses against COVID-19 have been applied. In Old Providence, a total of 5,645 doses have been applied.
Women from the city of Medellin were captured again for drug trafficking. The women were captured at the Gustavo Rojas Pinilla International Airport. We achieved the capture of 2 women who tried to bring narcotics to the island through tubes where they kept these narcotics and then introduced them in their intimate parts.
On the other hand, the colonel reported the seizure of more than 1,000 grams of marijuana.
We also seized more than 1,331 grams of marijuana. It is important to know that these captures have occurred on flights arriving from the city of Medellin.
The commander also indicated that narcotics camouflaged in household linen were found in cargo.
In this case, a package arrived which contained sheets and linen, and inside there was a package which, upon verification, was found to contain more than 492 grams of marijuana.
The colonel indicated that intelligence personnel are conducting an investigation to determine who is behind the latest cases of micro-trafficking that have occurred on the island.
By means of a letter, the Departmental Prosecutor's Office asked the President of the Islands Assembly to give information about the project that was approved, in which it talks about the privatization of the Office of Control and Circulation Ocre.
Throughout this letter, Stephanie Pino requests information about the draft ordinance approved by the Duma to privatize the office of the Ocre in what was called a mixed economy society. The regional prosecutor exposed several points of concern, among them to give a private company the management of the resources generated by the Ocre for a period of 30 years. Likewise, the regional attorney stated that it is not clear how a private company will be allowed to have the competence of a governmental entity created to protect the interests of the residents. This new agency will be attentive to the development of this news and the response of the authorities involved in this approval.
More than 50 entrepreneurs of our islands were benefited with donations from Social Prosperity and other entities that participated yesterday in Old Providence and today in San Andres. Wilfred Lever Orozco, the Director for Social Prosperity of the Archipelago, explains what it is about.
We delivered 27 entrepreneurs in San Andres items for their businesses, and yesterday in Old Providence we delivered to 31 entrepreneurs.
On the other hand, the official explained that they will continue to carry out projects for the benefit of the micro-entrepreneurs of the archipelago.
Weeks ago, we did a pre-registration with entrepreneurs in Old Providence with whom we started the program My Business for 500 entrepreneurs of the municipality. We also started with the collective entrepreneurship program for both San Andres and Old Providence, which is a program that benefits the productive associations of the island.
Also, one of the beneficiaries of the donation gave her opinion.
2 years ago, I benefited with a hot dog cart and a tent, but because of the hurricane, I lost the cart. And a few months ago, they contacted me to see how it had affected me, and they said they were going to help me by giving me another hot dog cart.
FONSAI was the foundation in charge of making the link between the donors and the entrepreneurs who were benefited. Also, a well-known shipping company in the country participated in the transfer of these donations.
And following the order of the Administrative Court for the preparation of storm shelters, today the Mayor's office summoned the Municipal Council for Disaster Risk Management to discuss the issue.
Mayor Jorge Norberto Garri announced the preparation of storm shelters after an extraordinary meeting with religious leaders, members of the Raizals Authority and the Municipal Council for Disaster Risk Management. These must be adequate in the next 3 months according to a court order.
The adaptation or construction of shelters here in the municipality, and we have identified together with the Risk Management Unit and the Reconstruction Management 12 possible sites that we can adapt, that can serve as shelters and that can be done in a maximum period of 2 months, because we know that the hurricane season has already started and we must arrange and adapt some sites as soon as possible.
In spite of having identified 12 sites, 3 will be started with an investment of 900 million pesos.
We have identified 12. But initially, due to budgetary issues, we are going to start with 3 located in Batam House, Southwest Bay, and the downtown area.
Finally, another of the topics discussed was the field hospital, since it's the only medical center and it's still intense. This could be dangerous in the event of a hurricane.
This hospital does not cease to generate risks, since at first sight it can be seen that it would not withstand a possible hurricane, God forbid, of Category 1. That is why we are evaluating the possibility of moving the hospital to the music school.
And Teleislas News spoke with Democratic Congressman James McGovern, who 3 weeks ago spoke before the U.S. Congress about the situation of the raizals. Let's see.
James McGovern, representative for Massachusetts in the U.S. Congress, spoke with Teleislas News about the situation of the Raizal people. The congressman considered that the ethnic group is in danger.
The traditions, the culture, the whole plight of the Raizal people are in danger, and that really is a human rights violation. People's culture shouldn't be wiped out, and the Duque government ought to respect, the Raizal people and work with them to help rebuild after the hurricane, but not to take over and have the Colombian Navy be involved and turn these islands into, tourist destinations.
In his own words, McGregor considers that the non-fulfillment of the reconstruction promises is a betrayal to the raizal people.
People should not be living in tents as we approach another hurricane season. And again, this is a matter of respecting people's basic human rights. Beyond the rebuilding, they need to be respected as to what the future of these islands look like. Any construction beyond rebuilding has to be in consultation with the people who live there.
Regarding the fisherman protest, he says that they have rights that must be protected and respected.
It's stunning to me that after the hurricane, President Duque said he was going to help rebuild, and help was on the way. And what happened was we instead saw the Navy install a dock near the Fishermen's Co-op, whose own dock was destroyed by the hurricane, right? And so the better response would have been helping the fishermen rebuild their dock. And the better response would have been keeping your promise to help rebuild these homes that have been destroyed.
The congressman hopes to travel soon to the country where he will address these issues once again.
And continuing with cultural news, this time the work of an island writer was chosen to promote reading in the country.
The publishing house Norma carries a contest which seeks to encourage reading for all the children in the country to explore new contents of stories and characters. This time, the publisher highlighted the most recent book by Ignacio Barrera Kelly called Anancys Tales.
The book is Cuentos de la Tía Nancy, is Nancy's story. 4 of them in there. 2 of them I write them, invent them and write them, and the other 2, well, I received them from as a child growing up with my aunts, no? But the thing about it is that for me, is something that make me really prideful because I'm proud of the achievement, no? Not only because I get a chance to share this book with the rest of the country, to share the Nancy story, them where I really love, with the rest of the country and all the children in the country and all the adults that want to read. The same thing happened with this book. This is my first book, While Descubre a los Bucaneros, While Meet the Buccaneers. This book also was part of the Norma Concurso. So when we published the book, it went through the reviews, the evaluation, and they really liked the book. So they include this book in the Norma Concurso for 5th grade when we publish it. If you look at this book, for example, you can see the level of the quality of this book. It's very high quality, done with glass, glass design, finishing. It was one of the few books that Norma did like that year.
Anancys Tales is the second book of the island author after the adventures of Wild discovers the Buccaneers, which tell the story of the archipelago of San Andres.
The Cultural Center of the Banco de la República presented its cultural agenda for the coming days.
On June 16, the Banco de la República will develop the lecture series Reflection on Violence in the Archipelago in a virtual way throughout its social network.
Create one space where we want to talk about the different type of violence where we live in at the island. We know so we got some gunshot that go on, we got several kind of delinquency in the island, but we also got a lot of things that go on in our territory, especially in the sea. So we want to talk about all these types of violence, even the violence that we receive from the state, no, with a historical view of things.
On June 18, the Cultural Center will hold the seminar Maritime Routes of Liberty and Native Adventures, which will feature international speakers.
Navigation in the 18th century, more or less, we want to know how the routes that were established, through which part people travel, how we travel, where we're coming from, how we used to move from island to island and to the mainland. So we want to see what a port the indigenous people of the Caribbean brought to this. We want to talk about the Creole people them in this participation.
The seminar Maritime Routes and Adventures, Libertarians and Natives will be carried out in a virtual way on the networks of the Cultural Center.